Again, good evening, everyone. Tonight's Dhamma talk is on wisdom and right intention, or maybe even I should say the wisdom of right intention. But we'll meditate first. We'll have a 20-minute meditation and then my talk. So find your relaxed meditative posture and gently close your eyes and gently close your mouths. And holding your back straight but not stiff. Your ears aligned with your shoulders and nose aligned with your navel. And holding yourself very loosely, very gently, very lovingly. Allow yourselves to settle into this room, settle onto your seats, settle into your bodies, and settle into your minds. And take a moment to become aware of the sensation of breathing in your body. Just get a feel for what that's like. To be mindful of your breath in your body. And while remaining mindful of your breath in your body, notice that thoughts are flowing. We're conscious beings, thoughts should be flowing. The purpose of meditation is to not be distracted by your own thoughts. So when you find that you're caught up in your thinking again, simply acknowledge that and return your mindfulness to the sensation of breathing. Relaxing your thoughts, remaining mindful of your breathing. And we'll meditate for 20 minutes with callbacks every 5 minutes. Relaxing thoughts, remaining mindful of your breathing. Relaxing your thoughts, remaining mindful of your breathing. relaxing thoughts, remaining mindful of your breathing. If a persistent thought or feeling arises, stay with it for a moment or two. Recognize it as impermanent and return your mindfulness to the sensation of breathing. And we'll meditate for 5 more minutes. Take a moment to become mindful of the quality of your mind. Be at peace with your mind. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. So we have a new member tonight. What's your name?
Isaiah.
You were here a couple weeks ago, weren't you?
Yeah.
It's good to see you again.
I'm so here.
Well,
Good to be on this call.
welcome back. I don't need to go over what we do here. How has your meditation been going?
Not suited.
You're in the right place then. It's very, very difficult to maintain a meditation practice on your own. And so that's one of the reasons why we're here. So I hope you continue to join us. We're going to go around the room in a minute. You can ask any questions you want. Tonight's talk is on wisdom and right intention. Let me just read it. I'll comment on it. The Eightfold Path is characterized as a path of wisdom, virtue, and concentration. Within the Dhamma, an emphasis is placed on developing heightened levels of these three characteristics in thought, word, and deed. In other words, in all of our behavior. An awakened human being abides in a body with a mind settled in wisdom. In this sense, wisdom is not an action or an object. Wisdom is a quality of mind that is developed through all 8 factors of the Eightfold Path. A definition of wisdom is the ability to think and act using knowledge, experience, understanding, common sense, and insight. And all of those, as far as the Dhamma is concerned, is developed through the Eightfold Path. Because the Eightfold Path helps us focus what we're developing mindfulness of, which leads to that ultimate wisdom of understanding the true nature of life in the phenomenal world, which is... The Buddha makes a distinction. It's interesting how he applies using the word wisdom, and it's always in the context of developing awakening through the Eightfold Path. So again, he's not discounting people that have a great knowledge or understanding of other aspects of life. But the Buddha was always well focused within the Dhamma and developing wisdom within the Eightfold Path. It is important when referring to the Dhamma to not confuse the teachings by attempting to apply the Dhamma to all ideas. And that's really what I was just talking about. Wisdom in the context of the Eightfold Path is a quality of mind that is developed through the Dhamma. Makes sense, doesn't it? In the Milinda Panha, the 18th book of the Khuddaka Nikaya, King Milinda questions one of the senior monks, Nagasena. And I should qualify that because I don't often go outside of the direct books of the Pali Canon. And so there's some debate about whether the Milinda Panha should be part of the canon, because the Milinda Panha is a series of questions from King Milinda, who was Ashoka's son. So obviously this is 300 years after the Buddha's passing, to Nagasena, a senior monk at the time, about the Dhamma. But the answers are so clear and they're so consistent with what the Buddha taught, I think it's reasonable to refer to it every now and then. And this is a particularly interesting sutta. This is one extract of a series of questions that King Milinda is asking Nagasena, and directly relates to what the sutta is about. Venerable Nagasena, what is the distinguishing characteristics of attention and of wisdom? Nagasena says, examination of the Dhamma is a distinguishing characteristic of attention, and severing is the distinguishing characteristic of wisdom. King Milinda, how is examination and severing, I'm having trouble talking tonight, and severing the characteristics of attention and wisdom? Nagasena replies, how do barley reapers harvest barley? The king says, they take a sheaf of barley in one hand and cut the sheaf with a sickle in their other hand. Nagasena says, in the same way that a barley reaper takes a sheaf in one hand and with the other hand carefully cuts the barley, so does a Dhamma practitioner develop concentration and refine mindfulness so as to take hold of the Dhamma with attention and then sever clinging to the defilements with wise intention. It is in this way that examination and severing are the distinguishing characteristics of attention and wisdom. The king replies, "You are wise, Venerable Nagasena." That's the end of that little excerpt. So Nagasena here is emphasizing the concentration developed in Shamatha-Vipassana meditation to support the refined mindfulness necessary to hold in mind or to be attentive to the Eightfold Path, to sever the bond of clinging to wrong views rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truth. I know that's something that we talk about all the time. So the emphasis of this talk tonight in that little excerpt from Nagasena and the king is just to reinforce the importance of that second factor of the Eightfold Path, right intention. Right intention is the intention to recognize and abandon all craving and clinging, and how that intention develops the wisdom of a fully awakened, fully mature human being, the description of wisdom. The Buddha repeatedly described the purpose of his teachings to develop an understanding of the distraction of dukkha, and to develop the experience of the end of dukkha by ending all clinging. And of course, it's clinging not just to chocolate cake, I always use that, but clinging to all ignorant views that we're using to describe ourselves in relation to the world. Ignorant views rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. What is commonly referred to as intelligence can be an aspect of wisdom, but it can also be a hindrance to awakening. And that's when we become enamored with our own thought process, especially when we start considering ourselves as being extremely intelligent, and that whatever I decide because of that understanding of my own great intelligence means that this must be true simply because I think it. It becomes an ongoing problem. We become enamored with our own thoughts. That's another way of saying we start clinging to our self-referential views. And sometimes the smarter we are, the harder it is to really see through that maybe I shouldn't, maybe all of the conclusions and assumptions I've made about the world aren't entirely correct. And they certainly aren't if they're lacking wisdom of the Eightfold Path, wisdom of the true nature of reality. Wisdom in a general sense is helpful in navigating the difficulties of the phenomenal world. The acquisition of wisdom is often clinging to a view of self as wise and somehow special. I can't remember the sutta a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about the necessity of developing self-effacing qualities, meaning that we don't take ourselves so personally superior to everything around us. And we recognize that in relation to the true nature of life in the phenomenal world. I don't know everything. Maybe there's something else to understand. That's the beginning of saying, I'm ignorant of these Four Noble Truths. Say here, it doesn't mean that as human beings we're ignorant of everything in the world. It is a very specific type of ignorance. And that's exactly what the Buddha taught upon his awakening, how to recognize and abandon that specific ignorance. Wisdom of the Dhamma arises from an investigation of the Dhamma. Some schools of Buddhism seeking to reconcile the Dhamma to cultural and societal views misapply intelligent views with the Dhamma. Creating associations to the Dhamma with impermanent ideas will simply develop more confusion. The Eightfold Path informs the application of intelligence in developing wisdom. It can be a way of developing how to think of certain subjects as well as what to place discerning thought on. And that's the refined mindfulness that's developed through the Eightfold Path. As the first factor of the Eightfold Path, right view or right understanding brings wisdom to the forefront of the Dhamma. The mundane wisdom gained initially through an intellectual encounter with the Dhamma can then lead to a deepening wisdom through experience arising from true insight. As wisdom and understanding is developed, right intention is seen as the essence of the Dhamma and of mindfulness. And notice in the Eightfold Path, right intention is right after right view, to remind us of the importance of maintaining that intention, of holding in mind. We said that the reason why we deepen concentration, or why we use meditation primarily for deepening concentration, is so that we can hold in mind, be mindful of right intention in all of our behavior, in every one of our interactions, in our life as life unfolds. When we get caught up in life, when we start reacting and getting distracted by our own life, we remember, wait a minute, my intention is to recognize and abandon craving and clinging. Remind ourselves in this moment, this is not me, this is not mine, this is not what I am, meaning attaching ourselves to things that are impermanent. Letting go of these views in the moment, maintaining the wisdom of right intention. Right intention is the intention to abandon all forms of clinging. Right intention also informs the proper application of intelligence and developing wisdom. And I simply mean thereby not being so enamored with our thinking that we have to go beyond the Dhamma as far as developing Dhamma practice. Is that clear what I'm saying there? So often we have, and this happened repeatedly during the Buddhist time, and I guess that's why I'm emphasizing it so much, because I see it so much today. An awakened human being displayed his awakenedness openly, meaning simply by the way he held himself. Now, obviously, I'm talking about when the Buddha was alive, and we could observe this. But he also taught his Dhamma in a very consistent and direct way. But even during the Buddhist time, those that were so enamored with their thinking concluded, this isn't enough. There must be more to this. Or even they had to, even maybe it wasn't even that subtle. They just decided, well, I want more. I want a more seemingly important Dhamma than just what this guy's teaching me. And that's what I'm talking about, and that's what Nagasena was reminding the king. There's enough here. This is the teachings of an awakened human being. If what we want to do is to awaken, it's a good idea to question why you would want to start adding to this. Or maybe taking part of it away because it doesn't fit your view of what you want Dhamma practice to be. Let me just finish this. Rather than broadly apply the factors of awakening that the Buddha taught to all outward experiences, intelligence and Dhamma experience, insight and common sense develops the wisdom to bring all of life's experiences into the Eightfold Path. In other words, trying to find all kinds of applications outside of the Dhamma and then say, well, this is part of Dhamma practice, and that is, and this is, and that is. Use your intelligence and wisdom wisely to recognize that the intention to recognize and abandon craving and clinging applies to craving for and clinging to external Dhammas and now making it part of the Dhamma. I'm probably not being as clear as Nagasena was to the king, but that really is the point. And it's something that the Buddha reiterated throughout his teaching in many different ways. Remain focused. This is all that you need. If there's one great benefit to leaving the world behind and joining a monastery, a well-focused monastery, such as the Buddha's original Sangha, it's just that. It's much easier to maintain focus on the Eightfold Path and the support of suttas, rather than getting involved in other things. I just finished writing I don't know if you've read the article on the website on the Pali Canon. I've just added to it by about tenfold. And in doing so, and describing how the changes have taken place over the years, even though I'm teaching it all the time and I've experienced it, as I'm writing it down and really seeing what has taken place in the 2,600 years since, it's astounding what has developed through being attached to our own conditioned thinking and using that conditioned intelligence to say, well, this should be a part of it, and I like it better this way, and this fits more with my view. And the great differences, significant differences that have developed. And again, I always have to qualify, saying I'm not putting down any other Buddhist religion or any other individual, but it's so important to recognize what the Buddha taught and what he didn't teach. And he felt the need to do that even during his time, even while he was teaching. There was this need to adapt and accommodate the Buddha's teaching to fit other views. Again, not right or wrong. It's what happens. And the whole point of this talk and this article is to just be mindful of it and to recognize that there's pitfalls into doing that. There's enough in the Dhamma. If what we're seeking is awakening, full human maturity, obviously there's enough in what an awakened person taught to develop our own awakening. So that's the end of the short talk tonight. So I hope you find it valuable. Any questions on the talk? Yes.
Somewhere in the beginning, you used common sense as the right thing.
As a factor of wisdom.
Factor of wisdom. I'm a little leery of that.
My common sense or your common sense?
Well, yeah, whose common sense is that?
That's a good question. Whose common sense are we using? That's a good question, because I guess a mind that is still heavily conditioned, the sense that's common to that is still going to be conditioned. So I see what you're saying. Common sense in the sense that an awakened human being taught us his Dhamma. It's common sense to just follow that, and maybe I should say follow that first. Just in the Buddha using that term ehepasiko, come and see for yourself, or in his talk to the Kalamas, was basically that. Use your common sense, apply it to the Dhamma, experience it for yourself, and then decide if it's something that needs further embellishment or discard it entirely.
Yeah, and it's just the sense of, as in the Kalama Sutta, is this leading to happiness, or is this leading to more suffering?
Yep, through your own experience.
Just that specific sense.
Yes, yes.
Because there's plenty of other common sense that is way off the cliff.
Yeah, so I guess it's common sense within the framework of the Eightfold Path. Because, and again, not to put down other teachings, but it was, in that view, certainly sensible to make other adaptations. And reading how between the second and the third Buddhist council, so now 100 to 220 or 30 years after the Buddha's death, where this was the second and the third council. During the second council, a reformist Protestant group was starting to arise within the Sangha that would later be called the Mahasanghikas. And it was in the second council that they started introducing, or wanting to introduce, well, I got to go back up a little bit. The first three Buddhist councils were made to continue to maintain the authenticity of the Buddha's teachings by continual recitation and verification. That's why they held the first one, the second one, the third one. During the second council, this emerging sect wanted to introduce now to this oral tradition other beliefs that they, through their common sense, had developed, and thinking, well, this is reasonable. We want to make this part of the Dhamma. So the monk who was leading that was named Tissa, if I remember the name correctly, and he rejected that and started compiling a refutation of what they were saying, but also adding his own little parts to that now. And that was eventually going to be included in the third book of the Pali Canon, the Abhidhamma. During the third council, the Mahasanghikas now had a lot of power. And the original Sangha was starting to fade away a little bit. And what would become modern, this is not something I was going to teach tonight, but what would become the modern Theravadins now considered themselves as the protector of the Dhamma. And so they decided to include I can't think of the name, the Katuvaka, as part of this emerging third book that would become the Abhidhamma, this third book and include that in the Pali Canon. And that would be the foundation of their interpretation of the Dhamma. And a direct split of the Mahasanghikas that now wanted this visionary view. They wanted to change some of the monastic rules, but more importantly, they wanted to now say that the Buddha himself, the historical Buddha, was really an apparition, an imagination, because that allowed them to now establish the Buddha not as a human being, but as a god, and one god among many gods. And if you look at the later developed schools, that's exactly how the Buddha is usually portrayed. And that also allowed them to start.
And the lineage.
in a lineage of gods. And now they were able to use, and this is where the Theravadins and the modern Mahayanas have a link, even though they'll say they don't. By saying that the Buddha was a god, allows the explanation of how the Abhidhamma as a whole came to be. And so now, because the Buddha was supernatural, not just a human being, it is said that about 7 years into his teaching, he left the physical plane and went to the plane of the Devas for 3 months and taught this special advanced teaching that is now called the Abhidhamma, that was later included as part of the Pali Canon. And it is in that Abhidhamma and in that supernatural application of the Buddha that all of the later teachings followed. In fact, I mean, they use that to justify teachings that arose later. So, again, it's just an explanation of what occurs. If you believe that, that's fine. If you find those other teachings useful, great. But it's important to understand how these came about. And
is this where the Dhamma Sutra comes?
Yes, in fact, that's I included that now in the new article. There's four major sutras that most of the later developed schools rely on: the Heart Sutra, the Lotus Sutra. The Lotus Sutra has really led to the Pure Land form of Buddhism. The Diamond Sutra and the Platform Sutra. The Platform Sutra is something that is always portrayed as coming from a Zen patriarch called Huineng. It's his platform. But there's a lot of teachings that follow, and the Diamond Sutra is one. The Diamond Sutra is really an adaptation of the Heart Sutra, and you look at it closely. But all of those came later, unless you believe that the Buddha did, in fact, 7 years into his teaching career, go to this, it's usually called Tulsita heaven, this heaven of the Devas, and teach the Dhamma. And that was the establishment of the Abhidhamma. Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot your name twice now. Isaiah, I'm sorry. I'll
What
remember.
kind of plane or heaven did he go to?
Well, it's called different names, but usually Tulsita heaven, Tulsita. Often it's just portrayed as the abode of the Devas, the disincarnate beings. And the Devas are usually not portrayed as anything special except they're disincarnate.
So if he taught it to them when they incarnated, they could bring it later.
You're finishing the story for me, so thank you. I wasn't going to. So then the legend is, at appropriate times, most of the talks, and I'm sorry to get sidetracked, but now that I'm into it, most of the references to this period refer to the snake people as the protectors of this teaching. And then at the appropriate time, they allowed certain beings to come to Earth and give this advanced teaching. If you look at the Abhidhamma, read the Abhidhamma, and if you think the suttas are difficult to follow, read the Abhidhamma. It is so intricate, and it hopes to explain the creation of all phenomena. It's a really mind twister when you start reading it. I mean, it's somewhere along the line, it was taken upon a group of people that they needed to explain how everything came into being, when the Buddhists really said, that's not important. He told Vajragota over and over again, don't worry about that stuff. That's just a distraction. Worry about your own awakening. So the Abhidhamma gets into, it also gets into psychological areas of different levels of consciousness, and it gets very analytical about that. And when you compare it to the suttas that are preserved in the Sutta Pitaka, it wouldn't make much sense that the Buddha would go out of the trouble of leaving his body for 3 months and teaching this. It just doesn't fit, is what I'm saying. It's so inconsistent with what he taught in a physical form, and that I don't find it even useful. But again, to get back to the point, I think maybe common sense would say that this is not something the Buddha taught, even though it's included now in the Pali Canon. But when you understand why it's in the canon, you can also make a common sense decision. Well, maybe this doesn't really relate to the Sutta Pitaka. Sorry about that. It's common sense. I hope
Sorry
that,
about that,
yeah, I hope I didn't make that whole situation more confusing than it needs to be, but there it is. Any other questions about that? I'd like to hear how your practice is going, and if you have any questions in general.
It's fine. Yeah, no, I think I'm okay.
Good, I'm glad to hear. It is fascinating, though, to see how this has really developed and understand the steps in the way. Mary, good to see you.
Good to be here. Good to see everyone. Often with the suttas, it's timely. So, and this may sound like a very basic question when you feel like you've developed right view and right intention in many areas of your life, or some areas, or on good days, or whatever, and then everybody has that experience where you feel like you take a step back and you just can't get something out of your head. Your own thoughts, and a feedback loop, and that's what happened to me this weekend. So one thing I didn't hear from what you were saying is how to get out of it. Like, I know how to get out of it, but I don't. But all of a sudden this weekend, I didn't know how to get out of it yet. So how do you bring yourself back to a place of knowing something, maybe as common sense, since you developed a certain awareness here, and then you're taken aback by whether it's a specific relationship or something where you get stuck in your own thoughts, they're not right view, you're clinging up, God knows why, but here you are, like, how do I
That's a great question, Mary, because we all come up against that. And when we get stuck in those conditioned views, even when we're at the point where we can recognize that it's a wrong view, it at times can be so difficult to find our way out. And that just shows the power of a clinging mind. So what do we do? The first thing that we can do is what you did, is come back to your practice, come back to meditation and start looking at it. Again, this is the exact reason why the Buddha gave us an eightfold path. Start looking at it in relation to those paths. And you could even pick it off. Now, am I stuck? Is it wrong view? Maybe. Is it wrong action that I'm continually involved in that's reinforcing that? Or maybe wrong livelihood? Or is it wrong speech, meaning that what we're saying to ourselves is what's continuing to reinforce this? Or is it just simply ongoing clinging? Look at, am I engaged in right effort, meaning continuing with my meditation practice? A lot of times when we get caught up in a conditioned view, the first thing that goes is, I don't have time to meditate, or I'm just too busy. We start making excuses. Or we might, what is subtly pointed to in this sutta, we might start substituting something else. Like maybe a little bit more asana practice would be better than meditation at this point, or maybe going golfing for a couple more times a week. Anything. When it happens, if we can remind ourselves that this disturbance in the mind is not me. This is not me. This is not who I am. This is not what I am. Practice. And as long as we maintain that focus, eventually we're going to come out of it. Or we'll hear something. We'll go to our weekly class, and we'll hear something that will snap us out of it. But this is a very, very common problem, and it's where Kshanti, persevering, comes through. It's where right effort guides us. The only thing we can do, and it shows how powerful that clinging conditioned mind can be.
Because even what you were reading, I mean, I'm so aware that what I'm thinking in this particular circumstance, it's not wisdom.
Yeah.
It's not coming from a place of wisdom at all.
Yeah. But the ability to recognize that is an important part of the Dhamma. Just that you know the difference, you can see the difference. Instead of, I mean, if you can, think about the way you thought 2 years ago, maybe even a year ago. when you get caught up in this, you have no perspective. You know, why am I feeling like this? This is just the way life is. Well, truth, we think that life is just stressful, and we don't think there's anything we can do about it. And we don't recognize our own contributions because we're lacking common sense. I knew I was going to be able to fit that in there.
Well, and I did keep going through the Four Noble Truths, you know, reminding myself that this can stop. I'm capable of not hanging on to this. Now go.
Yeah, that's great insight, Mary. Again, that's exactly how we apply the Dhamma. But it's not, you know, oftentimes it's not instantaneous.
Right.
You know, we have to go undo the process. You know, let's think about even the Buddha's account of his awakening, whether you talk about his meditative experience or what we talked about a couple of weeks ago in the Nagara Sutta. He goes through the process of first recognizing that he caught up in wrong view and what he had to do to finally develop fully mature right view.
Yeah, I've listened to that sutta a couple of times.
Yeah, it's really a great one, isn't it? That'll be the opening talk on the retreat too. It's the first one in the book. The book is going to be given to you at the retreat, so you're going to have a lot of copies.
I knew that was a possibility,
Oh,
but that's okay, because then I can give that book to someone else.
Good. Okay.
It's in my mailbox, according to Amazon, by the way. So
Oh,
I'll see
good.
it tonight.
Thank you. I'm very pleased with it. I think it really does a good job of presenting
I'm
the
looking
Dhamma the
forward
way
to
that
it. Very excited.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Helen, good to see you
Hi,
tonight.
John. Good to be here. I was having a little trouble with my practice and feeling like someone said tonight about, maybe it was Mary, that you get to a certain point and then all of a sudden you kind of, you thought you were anymore and you're not. You thought you had it and you don't. And it was getting frustrating for me, and I was trying to decide or understand, am I meditating or am I just sitting quietly? And I figured, well, sitting quietly is not bad either. So,
Yeah.
You know, but it's like you need a thought squeegee. Just stop.
That's a good one. That's great.
Whatever, yeah.
The fifth noble truth of thought
We
squeegee.
talked about that stepping back from the
Yeah.
before. There's a children's doctor, T-Barry Brazelton, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
But it was actually called something that a child, like say a child's been walking for a period of time and then all of a sudden they're having trouble walking. It's because they're about to run.
Oh, yeah.
So often their step
Nice.
back was because they were about to jump over whatever that was and go forward.
Wow,
I thought
that's
about it the
great.
other day and I
Yeah.
just bring it. So sorry to interrupt.
Thanks, no, that's good. I remember studying him. When I was,
Right.
yeah, so I just stopped being frustrated and just accepting life. I'm just sitting quietly, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And then today I was in a discussion and someone was convinced that some written words meant something, and I was trying to explain it, no, that it's not what they mean. And every time I started to explain it, they started to repeat, but that's what it is. And no. And I finally just had to say, there's a middle way. I'm like drawing this line, there's a middle way, we have to find the middle way to understand this. So, you know, it's a language that you can work into your dialogue and hopefully navigate through all the dukkha.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I am. And
Thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to the retreat and hoping that that will be my.
It may well be. I mean, the purpose of retreat, at least the way I run retreats, is so that we can spend a reasonable amount of time just focused on the Dhamma without the outside world that we have to always do a retreat from that. So I think you'll find it greatly helpful. I hope you do. That experience that at times, is this right? Is this useful? Why am I doing this? That's all part of something that the Buddha taught 2,600 years ago too. The hindrances to practice, and one of them is doubt. And it's not that we shouldn't have doubt, it's to recognize that that is a part of practice. It's just there. And what do? meditate. And sometimes just sitting is good enough. Just call it that. Just sitting quietly is good enough. I noticed over the years, especially when I really started focusing on what the Buddha taught, and I was going through some pretty significant viewpoint changes, I guess is the best way to say it, the way I was seeing things in relation to the world, coming through a lot of different doubt. But at times it was, I'm not going to say it was earth-shattering because nobody else was experiencing it, but it felt like that to me. And then I would have these periods, even though I was continuing with my practice and continuing to read the suttas and develop my understanding, where it felt like nothing's going on. It just, it wasn't bad, it wasn't good, it just felt like I was going nowhere. But that felt awful. And I realized, it took me a while to realize it, but I would eventually stay with the practice and I'd come out of it and I'd feel good about what I was doing and it's making sense and I'm able to apply it. And then I'd have another period of, no, this is just boring. Why am I doing this? Why am I following this guy from 2,600 years ago? And I come out of it again. What I realized going through that about 6,000 times is those times when it felt like nothing was going on is when I was integrating everything I had learned up until that point. And I really wasn't capable of going further until I integrated what I had already developed. But it felt like, ugh. Because now I'm not intellectually, it felt like I just couldn't, I couldn't take anymore until I got this. Until I learned how to walk another few steps. And now, if I just relax, I didn't realize at the time, then I can run with the Dhamma. But you bring up something that's so important. This is why the Sangha is so important, because we get to talk about these things in our own struggles with developing it. Frank?
Oh, I just wanted to say something about that. Myself, going through that period often, and it was where I allowed the mindfulness part of the meditation to take root. So if you're being mindful of what that is going on there, or the thoughts, and if I allowed myself not to have a judgment on it, that's where the dispassionate part of mindfulness was growing, allowing the thoughts to pass through, and it eventually came to a quiet time. Because not all my meditation practices are peaceful. I live in a very chaotic environment, or I work in a chaotic environment, and that's where I started to notice the mindfulness, how important the mindfulness part of Shamatha-Vipassana meditation was. Allowing it to just be and not have a judgment on it.
Yeah. Thank you, Frank. Being at peace with a less than peaceful mind state. That's that fourth foundation of mindfulness. And that's a perfect and practical example of it. Just recognize this is what's occurring. And also like Khandana, this is an impermanent state. It persists. Thank you. Keith, good to see you tonight.
Good to see you. Good to be here. I'm currently at a sort of block state. I don't do a lot of things. Very simple. I have a lot of things coming up this summer that I had planned, and I get swept up in a lot of craving and getting excited about what's going to be happening in the moment. So I've been very steadfast with my practice. I'm happy to be here tonight. It's what I need to just be mindful and be here right now and not worry about things that might or might not happen or happened previously, but just to be happy and be here. And so sometimes it is a little difficult to stay focused, but it's definitely worth trying to stay on track.
Yeah. Thank you. A lot of wisdom in that, Alan Watts. Be here now. This is, no matter what great things we have coming in the future, sometimes we hopefully know, at least we can plan on, but sometimes we don't know. But the only time we can live our life is right now. And when we get caught up in, I can't wait to get to the carnival on Friday, you're missing Thursday. Thursday is just as important as Friday. It's great wisdom to recognize that. And to also remember that it's our Dhamma practice, meditation in the Eightfold Path, that brings meaning to all the things that we're doing now and all the things that we might do. And we can't be there until we get there. Thank you for bringing that up. Great
You
point.
mentioned Alan Watts, and I remember in college reading a book called Cloud Hidden Whereabouts Unknown. And I guess the rest of the tagline is, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And just another similar experience. For my birthday, I had all my sisters around me, and at certain points, the conversation would shift to something, and someone would take out their phone to research it or find the answer. And Meg says, "What if we just don't have to know?"
Wow.
It's like, okay, put the phone
That's
down.
great. Yeah. Chasing that intellectual knowledge all the time. Good for Meg. Isaiah, good to see you tonight.
Good to see you.
How's your practice going? And I know you said it's a little bit spotty.
Yeah. So I had a head injury, and when I was really miserable, I could meditate every day, and now I'm physically in a better place, but I find that I'm going.
Wow.
And so I usually make the decision to distract myself for half an hour rather than find out whatever's wrong, for like half an hour.
But it's great that you recognize that. And you don't have to meditate for a half an hour. You don't have to give up a half an hour. If you start, and I teach this in every class, especially when someone's new or coming back, start with short periods of meditation, 2 or 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. And if you can do that twice a day, around 12 hours apart, very soon you'll have a full-fledged meditation practice. And as you develop the broader understanding of what we talk about here, meaning the Eightfold Path, that will support your deepening concentration, and your deepening concentration will support integrating the entire path. But I think from what you said about having a head injury, you'll find this greatly beneficial in developing concentration. There's, not to get into it, but there's a lot of medical studies that will say just the same thing. So I hope you continue to join us. Always feel free to contact me via the website. And just keep doing the best you can. Don't get frustrated either. The reason why I say that is if you while you were meditating tonight, were you able to maintain the method, meaning you recognize when you're caught up in your thoughts and you came back to your breathing?
Oh yeah, but
That's the basic. I don't mean to interrupt you. That's the basic practice. Now, what were you going to say? What was the but?
I was just gonna say, even when I would think about my breath, I find I'm always looking like how can I feel my breath in the best way? Like how can I feel so good feeling my breath?
Yeah, nobody's ever asked that question before. So it comes up all the time too. And I used to give this instruction much more often than I do now. To start your meditation with just a deep breath, just to feel what it's like, and then try it through your nose, just to over-exaggerate what your breath feels like. And you can do that a few times, and then just put your focus on that sensation of breathing. I often give the instruction to, if you can notice the breath right at the tip of your nose, right at the inhale and the exhale, put your mindfulness there. Some people notice it through the rise and fall of their abdomen. And without overemphasizing that, you can use that as a point of focus. The point of all that is to be as dispassionate about your breath. Do not try to manipulate it in any way. But however you experience your breath is enough to develop concentration. So you can try that. Just take a few overemphasized breaths and see if that helps. If you're able to maintain that method, recognizing that you're caught up in your thoughts and come back to your breath, every meditation session is successful. The reason why I say that is don't be frustrated if it feels like for 4 minutes you're caught up in your thoughts and for the last minute of your meditation you're on your breath. That's fine. Every time you do that, you'll deepen your concentration. If you start judging yourself as I can't do this or it's just too hard, you're never going to meditate, or you'll do it once or twice and give it up. Every time you meditate, if you maintain this simple method, it's a successful meditation. And as you develop the broader framework of the Eightfold Path, you will start reaping the benefits of this pretty quickly. Am I right, or am I selling a bag of goods?
Real deal.
I'm glad you joined us tonight. And again, feel free to contact me anytime through the website. Did you take that booklet, the yellow booklet?
Yeah.
last time? Okay, so you got that. And, there's a recording of this meditation on the website too. You can download it and listen to it. So, good. I'm glad you made it tonight.
Thank you.
Frank, good to see you tonight. How are you?
Good to be here. I really appreciated teaching tonight, especially the reference or analogy of the sickle with right view and grabbing it and chopping it off with right intention. I've been noticing lately how I'm on this path. I'm trying to keep the Eightfold Path as the framework, and I have also cravings and desires and aversions, and I call them streets on this crossroads on the path. You know, and it's been helpful when I catch myself in the wrong mind frame to remember right view and set right intention, and it kind of just, it's not like an abandonment, it's more like a sever. It just completely, dissipates, it's gone. It's not like I'm forcing it, it's not like I'm abandoning this, it's more like it's gone. Keeping right view and right intention. So I had a good connection with the sickle and severing.
Yeah.
So I got
Again, an excellent practical explanation of how we integrate the Eightfold Path into our life. That's how it's done. Using that metaphor, you think about a barley sheaf in one hand and a sharp sickle in the other hand. You better be mindful. It takes a lot of focus, and it takes a lot of focus to develop the Dhamma, and that's rooted in concentration.
I find that when I'm becoming unfocused or deluded thinking or whatever, it's usually when I'm being drawn with craving or desire or aversion, clinging, whatever you want to call it. And as soon as I can hold in mind right view and right intention, it feels like it's severed.
Yeah.
So, I didn't, think of the word sever until you said that.
Yeah, it really applies. And what you're describing right, fully awake and fully mature right view. You just understand what's going on. And that leads directly to right intention. I don't want to be stuck in this. I don't want to be craving and clinging for an ignorant existence anymore. I want to live my life. Lorna, good to see you.
It's pretty good to see everybody again. I don't really have anything. I'm kind of, I think we're all at crossroads tonight, but I'm kind of like jumping ahead a little bit with my thinking, and I don't know if I'm really right. I think I'm beginning to see that life is stressful. The first noble truth that all of life is stressful if you're not in the moment. If you're not absolutely in the present moment. And I don't think that's something it's pleasant to wake up to, really. Really see that. It's not a pleasant thing. That's one thing. And then I just noticed myself sort of doing things to occupy myself or distract myself. The things that we just do. We have our own things that we like to do. I'm beginning to realize that it's just a distraction. It's just a distraction away from the present moment. I'm just trying to make things. I'm trying to make my life more pleasurable, but I'm not. I'm just carrying on the stress, the dukkha. So I'm kind of just sort of in I feel like a bit of an unbalanced platform. I'm on a platform, but it's not the platform I want to be on. It's not how I have seen the Dharma in the past, and we have to change your views of what the Dharma is and what it's really about. Sometimes when you really realize something, it sort of changes everything. So I think that's all I have to say. All I can think of just now.
You said a lot, Lorna. Thank you. That you're developing a deeper level of an understanding of dukkha. And at times it can seem like, I don't even know if I want to understand this. It's not something that, in fact, a conditioned mind does everything it can to avoid thinking about it too much. And here we're said, you got to take a look at this. But the other side of it is you understand that dukkha is part of the human existence. But when we can accept that, then we can live life as life occurs without the need for it to be any different, including when it's negatively stressful. But also we don't get too enamored when it's positively stressful. You know, when we win the lottery or something like that. And you, I mean, I happen to know you've come through a very stressful, just a normally stressful time anyway. The Buddha describes awakening as a profound, right view, as a profound understanding of the nature of stress. I just got an email from an online student who's just beginning. I think he just came through the chapter on the Four Noble Truths. And his questions were related, and it happens a lot. What's the, I think is, Garrison, if you're listening to this, I'm talking about you. His last line after talking about the Four Noble Truths and the nature of suffering is, here then, if all there is suffering. Of course, it's not that, the Buddha's not saying that everything, this is just a miserable existence. There's incredible beauty and just amazing discoveries every moment if we're open to what life is like about. But we miss all of that if we insist that, if we become preoccupied with dukkha and our thoughts are always in the past or the future and conditioned by that ignorance of Four Noble Truths. Yeah.
I think I blame myself, and I blame myself for my ego, because my ego is rooted in all my negative thoughts.
So I would say a better word is not blame, but just to recognize.
Because, I know, but I blame myself.
Okay.
I do. I think, you know, when I know different, and there I go again. You know.
Yes, but
I get, you know, I blame myself. You know, that's the way it's not Dhamma talk, is it? Quite the reverse, but you know, I know that all my, you know, negative thoughts, you know, away from the Dharma are ego-based. I hate it. I'm fed up with it. You know?
I do know. And I'm almost, I'm wavering about whether, it really depends on how you're actually looking at yourself, because it's a good idea to recognize and be displeased with a self-referential ego self. But, and the way you're using the word blame might be entirely appropriate. What I would say, and I think you are, is to be gentle with yourself when you recognize. And this is exactly why I say we need to be gentle with ourselves. If we start judging ourselves harshly, why am I like this? Or how come I can't get past it right now? We're just locking it in. You know, we're reinforcing condition, thinking that there's something really here. So just like everything else, if you feel like that's a confining space, blaming yourself, even that idea is to be seen as, this is not me, this is not mine, this is not who I am. What are you blaming? The Buddha would say, it's nothing. It's like foam on the ocean. There's nothing really there. Of course, it seems like there's something really there when we're stuck in it. You know, it doesn't seem like foam on the ocean.
But it's
And that's
the ongoing.
Yep. Life is dukkha. Dukkha occurs.
You know, I made it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just astound myself at just what I will do to.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's good to recognize that. The lengths you go to maintain that self-referential ego self.
Like I say, I'm just not just waking up to it, but you know, I'm saying good. Enough of it. I don't seem to make any inroads. That, you know,
Good.
my mind doesn't seem to be calmer. It just seems to take the same choice. When it's off guard, off we go again.
I think for many that's part of the process too. You get to the point where you're just so sick and tired of maintaining it, and now you have the perspective of how to let it go, how to use the sickle and just cut it off. But it's all part of the process. Again, I know you've heard me say it, this is a practice of ease and joy, but it's not for the faint of heart. You know, there's times when it's very, very difficult. And again, that's why there's an eightfold path, you know, to help us maintain our focus. Recognize that even that view is rooted in a wrong view. It's rooted in ignorance of the way things are. This belief that, you know, how could I have done this to myself? And why can't I get through it quicker? Is part of dukkha. It's part of conditioned thinking. Dukkha occurs even within my own, or especially within my own self-referential views. You remember the sutta last week that we were talking about, how the Buddha described in the Gara Sutta, how he talks about his thoughts back on himself. You know, how Namarupa, name and form, and concentration is just his feedback loop. We get caught, concentration meaning ongoing thinking rooted in ignorance. We get caught in the self-referential feedback loop of, boy, what's wrong with me? I can't, I'm this, I'm that, and how do you get out of it? Mary was talking about it earlier too, and to a certain extent, Helen, what do you do? We can get out of it, at least as far as we know, or as far as awakened human beings said it. And you apply the Eightfold Path. And you recognize that all views rooted in ignorance can only lead to dukkha. It can only, and that is a view that's part of that. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you. Bonnie, good to see you tonight. How are you?
So glad to be here tonight. I have so many different thoughts and resonating to things that people have said. One of the things that you were saying about, you know, you get to a point and you feel like that maybe it's neutral or it's copacetic. It's like living in the gray area as you are integrating things you learn. I was thinking like it's almost like, you know, when you're hungry and then you eat and then you're really full and you can't eat. You might want to eat, but you can't. You don't allow yourself to because you're so full and you have to digest your food. And then when you're empty and you're hungry, you can eat again. So I love that idea about one of the most important things that I've gotten, I guess, is because despite knowing things, I get caught up in my thinking, I get caught up in my ego, I get, you know, and now we were just talking at dinner that I always see like stress arrives as like in like some sort of a truck, like a delivery truck.
Bus.
But as the truck goes on and goes away, it's like, okay, that was great. And you know, you're appreciating the calm of the solving or whatever occurred. Actually, last week's stress, I dealt with it by not doing anything, and it was a really good choice because it worked out really great for a lot of people, me not responding at all. You know, the next step is sort of like, so the next truck, and like, you know, I'm okay, then trying to figure out the best way, and I get all caught up. And Mary and I found Mary on the path, and it was like, oh my goodness, but I think just choosing, and I was sort of sitting there outside trying to think that I knew I had to get my ego out of the way for me to be on the other side, but it's like this part you don't want to give it up, like, like almost like, you know, if you do that, you're going to lose something. But actually, at dinner, finally for dinner, I was like, you know what? I got it. So when you were saying, when I realized that when you get to that crossroad, you get to that place and you see once I see what I need to do, then it's sort of like, okay, so be careful before I drop the house on you. It's like, like, when's the next house going to be dropped? So, but this feels so much better than earlier, you know, to just like the things that people keep, I feel like, testing and pushing, and maybe it's life's assertions and giving me these things as I pursue. But I do think it's that we can choose our thoughts, and again, it's a choice to choose those things or to stay. I'm going to do it my way, which I really like doing. But when we have to play with others and work with others, and I'm trying to teach others to play with others, and it's life is really stressful. But in the meantime, that as long as I can turn and get a different view, but to be kind to myself. I asked a group of my students, they were talking about somebody's broke, and she got this gorgeous thing she made, and she was so upset that something had fallen off, and people are so hard on themselves. And so I said, how many people are hard? Everybody raise their hand, it's everybody, and I think that to remember, regardless of even if my meditations are on whoa, 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 or I can get back to the breath. And when you say to be at peace with whatever quality your mind is, has been helpful, and to be kind. Despite, even if I'm wrong, even if I've made a mistake, it doesn't mean that I don't have to be responsible for myself, right? But that
you don't have to beat yourself up over it.
Right, I can say it's okay. And metta, and then doing a lot of metta. Even when I can't meditate, when my meditations are hard, I say metta. And that.
Yeah, that's why the Buddha taught it. That's why we conclude our classes with it.
Where I am now.
That being gentle with ourselves is also, and you alluded to it, it's a difference between, and understanding the difference between acceptance and approval. In order to better myself, even to develop the Dhamma, I don't have to first recognize where I'm wrong, but I can accept where I'm at without the need to approve myself. This is simply, there's more to go. I need to learn some more. This is accepting it. What a dumb person or whatever. That's getting that acceptance and approval tied together, which is what we commonly do. And you mentioned something got me thinking about one of the most important suttas, I think, is the Vitakka Santana Sutta, where the Buddha concludes, we gain the ability to think what we want to think when we want to think it. Meaning we think appropriate thoughts for what's occurring right now. How can we do that if we're stuck in the past or stuck in the future? Our life is life occurs. So, thank you, Mommy. Frank.
I was just going to say that I experience all these same things, and for me, it helps me to remember that I'm powerless with my own will, that I surrender to this form of power greater than myself. And I use that as the guiding force in my life. So just surrendering my entire will towards the Dhamma and the practice of meditation and following the Eightfold Path, setting the wheel in motion for myself every day, that I think helps me.
It's like lay down your arms.
Yeah, just surrender. I surrender.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I'll screw everything up.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right, Frank. And again, the Buddha realized that too when he awakened. How can I teach these people, this humanity who are stuck in their conditioned views, who are so enamored with keeping this self going rather than Eightfold Path. That's how we do it.
And part of that everyday process for me is also surrendering all my false beliefs, all my inclinations that never worked. Just remembering, realizing that this never worked, acknowledging that this path that I've been on for a short time has given me more freedom than I've ever felt in my life. So just having the faith and trust in it. And the courage to sit on the cushion every day and maintain the proper commitment to meditate.
Yeah, that's the right word too. It's a practice of ease and joy, but not for the faint of heart. Do it. Boy, what a great class today. Any other questions before we conclude? So our retreat is next week. So we'll have a class on Tuesday, but no Thursday or Saturday class next week. If you haven't signed up yet and you'd like to, please do so. I think that's all the announcements I have on that. It did come up, I think I mentioned that we won't have a Donna dinner this Memorial Day season, but we will have one the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Just too much going on. So we'll conclude with metta. So find your relaxed meditative posture. Gently close your eyes and gently close your mouths. And again, take a moment to become aware of the sensation of breathing in your body, and let that mindfulness of your breath cease any distracting thoughts to the past or to the future, or that may have arisen from our talk tonight. And these are the Buddha's words on metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class. Peace.